Kadarius Toney is now mysteriously off the injury report for only the third week this entire season after taking to Instagram last weekend to let everyone know he is not injured. And while he seems healthy, I honestly have my doubts as to if he will even play in the Super Bowl. So we got to talk about that, Drue Tranquill's Super Bowl text from Andy Reid last offseason coming true, Mahomes and Kelce's pre-game altercation with Justin Tucker, and much freaking more. But first, how about those? So we all know by now in the divisional round against the Bills that Mahomes and Kelce passed up Brady and Gronk for the most postseason touchdown connections of any playoff duo in history. Brady and Gronk have 15, meanwhile Mahomes and Kelce now have 16. Then in the AFC Championship game, Travis Kelce passed up Jerry Rice with the most playoff receptions in NFL history, snagging 156 passes compared to Rice's 151. But the question now is, how far off is Kelce from Jerry Rice's other monstrous postseason stats? Well, he currently needs 3 touchdowns to tie Rice's 22 postseason scores, as well as 435 more receiving yards to tie him in that as well. Well, in order for that to happen, I think Kelce needs to be back for at least 1, maybe 2, hopefully just 1 more postseason runs to catch him in all of these stats. And whether he does break them all or not, it's still crazy to think we are talking about Travis Kelce even having the possibility of catching up to the legend Jerry Rice in all of these categories. Kelce, of course, is honored to be up there with him, saying he has nothing but respect for Jerry and all he's accomplished. And as he catches up to Rice, it made him think of a memorable childhood game of his.
Remember backyard football on the computer growing up? Yes. Every time Jerry would score a touchdown, his automatic celebration was to pull out a notebook, open the notebook, and on the header it said records. And I looked it up when I got older. I was like, he has all the fucking records, and that's why they did it. And it's just full circle that I'm as good as Jerry Rice in backyard football.
Back in July, Chiefs linebacker Drue Tranquill said he decided to sign with the Kansas City Chiefs because of the way the team pursued him, all the way from the front office down to the coaching staff. He then went on to share what Andy Reid personally texted him the morning he was going to make his decision, concluding he felt KC really wanted him over there, and that's why he ultimately signed. Well, just a couple days ago, Tranquill actually shared a screenshot of that conversation from that exact morning, revealing Andy Reid told him something along the lines of, he will respect whatever direction you want to go. Then, quote, if you need to talk, my phone is on ring. Till then, see red and think Super Bowls, wink emoji. And the best part of this story is Drue Tranquill did indeed see red, thought of Super Bowls, signed with the Chiefs, and now gets his chance to play in his first ever Super Bowl because of his decision. Andy Reid was not lying, and you really love to see it.
To look back on that text from Coach Reid, it's something to laugh about, but it's been a long, 8 months or I guess 10 months since that moment. But we've put a lot of hard work in, and we're super excited for this opportunity.
I also respect the fact that Drue Tranquill is so against his former team and the Chargers that he refuses to even charge his phone. Look at this screenshot. 6% battery. Drue, holy smokes, man. And I, of course, am extremely grateful Drue signed with KC because he was one of the most crucial offseason signings for the defense, in my opinion. We didn't know it at the time, but Nick Bolton would later go on to miss half the season due to an ankle injury early on, as well as a wrist injury he had to have surgery on. And during that time, Drue Tranquill filled in for Bolton as the Mike linebacker, with the defense not having to simplify their schemes or play calling whatsoever. At the conclusion of the regular season, Tranquill logged 54 solo tackles, 4.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and made quite the impact, even though he wasn't always out on the field when Nick Bolton was back and healthy. He also had the highest pass rush and coverage grade of any linebacker on the team, racking up 22 total pressures and 15 QB hurries as well. He can blitz, he can cover, he can tackle, he can spy, and the Chiefs would be wise to highly consider bringing Drue Tranquill back this offseason with his 1-year deal obviously expiring after the Super Bowl. Do you guys agree or nah? Also, if you could only choose one linebacker to return next year, would you go with Willie Gay Jr., who also is a free agent after the Super Bowl, or Drue Tranquill? Let me know in the comments down below. Real quick, before we get to more news, if you didn't know, I started an HBTC News Clips channel, which takes my long-form live streams and puts them into very small, digestible 1 to 2 to 3 minute clips. And I also do the same thing with my long form news update videos like you're watching right now. Some of these can be 15 to 20 minutes long, and I'll take a few of the segments out that are 1 to 2 to 3 minutes and put them on that channel as well. So we're dropping a bunch of videos on there. I have a couple thousand subs right now, but if you haven't already, make sure to give it a sub. The whole Justin Tucker pregame altercation has continued to be talked about, yet I haven't really mentioned it in a video, so it's time. Prior to the game, Travis Kelce and Mahomes could be seen moving Justin Tucker's helmet, kind of tossing it out of the way as they were getting ready to do their own warm-ups. Well, Pat McAfee said Mahomes and Kelce needed to be careful because...
Hey, Justin Tucker was going to beat your ass, dude. He was going to beat your ass.
And while McAfee was clearly joking, Mahomes and Kelce were not. They wanted Justin Tucker out of the way. Mahomes not only asked Justin to move his stuff, but when he did, he only moved it like a foot, maybe, if that. On top of that, Mahomes has only had an issue at one stadium with kickers in his 7 years in the league.
He asked me while I was on the ground stretching, like, if I could move my helmet. So I happily got up and I moved my helmet out of the way.
I asked him to move his stuff, and he got up and moved it, I think, 2 inches. I've had like 7 years of kind of doing that same warm-up routine, and there's only been like 3 occasions where there's been a kicker that wasn't sharing the field in the right way, and I mean, it was in Baltimore all 3 times.
And when asked about the other altercations, Mahomes said the previous ones haven't escalated to that extent.
Not to that extent, but we have had that same issue, so we just got to figure out how his warm-up routine and my warm-up routine don't interact.
Justin Tucker, after the game, said he had no ill intentions and was just doing what he's been doing his entire 12-year career.
That's just what I've done for 12 years, and it's not like I'm out there trying to be problematic. I'm just trying to get ready for the football game just like they are.
Well, Justin, if Mahomes had the same warm-up routine for his entire 7-year career, and the only kicker that's been an issue is you, then you, my friend, are not the victim, but the problem. However, of course, the masses freaked out on Mahomes and Kelce because they hate the Chiefs. But honestly, I thought they handled the situation with Justin Tucker pretty well, all things considered.
I moved his stuff about as politely as I could. I could have thrown his helmet about 50 yards into the stands if I really wanted to make a point.
On the subject of Patrick Mahomes, even though the passing game and offense overall hasn't put up as many points as they have in previous years, he always wants to be aggressive and take chances, just has to be smart about when to do it. He looked at the second half of the Ravens game, and they definitely missed some deep ball opportunities. And against a team as good as the 49ers, they will have to make those count.
And then we're going to have to be really high execution, kind of like we were in the first half, but negative plays will stall drives out, and they're a defense that will, once those drives, you have negative plays, those drives won't end with points.
And points is exactly what you will need against this 49ers team that has averaged 28.9 points per game in the regular season, and basically the same has continued for them in the playoffs. Thankfully, though, the Chiefs' defense has allowed just 13.5 points per game in the postseason. Meanwhile, the 49ers' defense has allowed 26. One player the Chiefs will have to keep an eye on at all times is running back Christian McCaffrey, who linebacker Drue Tranquill labeled as one of the most dynamic backs in the NFL. He's going to be a big challenge for the team to stop, a definite point of emphasis. Andy Reid said CMC can do it all, and the 49ers are great at maximizing all the tools he brings to the team. Nick Bolton said McCaffrey is, quote, all world, and they will not only need to limit their explosive plays on offense, but force a couple turnovers as well. The last time these two teams played was actually the 2022 season, I believe, and the Chiefs spanked the 49ers 44-23, but Jimmy Garoppolo was their QB, and Christian McCaffrey had only been there for like 3 days. So while they do have a bunch of the same talent this year, it's a completely different beast that Kansas City will be going up against, and that's why Tranquill said, even though the defense's success so far has been great, they're heading back to the Super Bowl, it obviously will not matter if they don't do their jobs against the 49ers next week. Andy Reid noted that 49ers QB Brock Purdy has continued showing how good he is, which is something he did in college as well, and Big Red noted he was just as effective using his legs last week as his arm, or so it seemed, so you know they're going to have to be wary of that as well. It does help, though, that the Chiefs have just played back-to-back dual-threat QBs in Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, and while Brock can move at times when needed, he doesn't do it like Lamar or Josh, so in theory, he shouldn't be as big of a problem as either of those two, at least in the scrambling aspect of things. And then I've been getting asked a lot of questions recently about running back Jerick McKinnon, with the question being, could he return from injured reserve for the Super Bowl? Well, I reported on this a couple weeks ago, but McKinnon was placed on IR back on December 24th and could technically return for the Super Bowl if the team opted to activate his 21-day window to return. However, Matt Derrick of Chiefs Digest reported that McKinnon had core muscle surgery on January 2nd, and was spotted in the locker room on or around January 10th using crutches. The muscle tear he had repaired, by the way, also fractured his pelvis when it tore off the bone, which had to hurt for one, and then definitely makes his return pretty unlikely in my opinion, even though the club hasn't officially ruled him out for the remainder of the season. Therefore, sadly, I doubt we see a Jerick McKinnon return for the Super Bowl. And as far as other injuries are concerned, Andy Reid said left guard Joe Thuney is making progress, not counted out yet, but, quote, we'll see how it goes. Now, someone who is definitely out is defensive end Charles Omenihu, who confirmed tore his ACL in the AFC Championship game, which sucks and is a tough loss indeed for the defense. Now, the injury report isn't something I'd look too heavily into at the moment due to the fact that we still have another week for players to heal up and get healthy, but as of right now, Joe Thuney, pec, Sky Moore, knee, and Prince Tega Wanogho quad would be the 3 players listed as questionable, with Charles Omenihu being ruled out. However, I'd anticipate Charles gets placed on IR, which would open up a roster spot for somebody on the practice squad to get signed to the roster, probably one of the defensive linemen. Sky Moore's window to return, as well as Prince Tega Wanogho's, is still open, and we will see if any of them find their way onto the 53-man roster next week. But again, in order to do that, you got to make room. The only other 3 on the injury report I would keep tabs on is running back Isaiah Pacheco, toe/ankle, defensive tackle Chris Jones, quad, and linebacker Willie Gay Jr., neck. These guys were limited all week in practice, though I'm like 98% sure Chris Jones and Pacheco will play in the big game. The one guy I'm still more unsure of, though, is linebacker Willie Gay Jr., who only played in half or around half of the divisional round against the Bills and did not play at all against the Ravens in the AFC Championship game due to this neck issue that's flared up on him. Andy Reid said it hurt for him to even turn his head, which is not ideal. Hopefully, though, sitting out against the Ravens and having an extra week of rest before the Super Bowl should be enough, fingers crossed, for Willie Gay Jr. to be ready. Someone you will not see on the injury report this week is wide receiver Kadarius Toney, who, as a reminder, took to Instagram the morning of the AFC Championship game to let everyone know that he is not injured, and if people have questions, they need to talk with Rick Burkholder about it. Andy Reid then said earlier this week in his presser with the media, Toney has indeed been injured, which is why he's been on the injury report, noting also he's been, quote, going through some things. Well, this week, the Chiefs have indeed removed him off the injury report, which makes only the 3rd week all season that Toney has not been listed on there, with those 3 weeks being week 8, week 10, and then week 22 this week. Outside of those 3 weeks, it's either been his knee, his toe, his ankle, his hip, or some combination of those, and for whatever reason. That makes me think of the song my daughters listen to, Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes. He's been seen at practice this week, appearing to be in high spirits, as you can see from some of this footage on screen now from Harold Kuntz. So cool. Toney's not injured, and he seems happy out there, but the question is, will the Chiefs just let his comments, his rant from Instagram last week slide and allow him to play in the biggest game of the year? He basically insinuated, again, the team was lying about his injuries, which gives off the appearance the team was being dishonest about that as a way to, I guess, quietly bench him. I mean, that's how it comes off to me, because if you aren't hurt, why aren't you playing? So I believe he has indeed been hurt off and on all season, even if he seems fine this week. Offensive coordinator Matt Nagy was asked about Toney today at his presser, and this is what he had to say.
Yeah, I thought he looked good. For us, it's a day-by-day thing for him and where he's at.
And when asked if Toney is in a better headspace now, Nagy replied saying,
I think so, yeah. And again, we're evaluating all that with every player every day, just kind of seeing where they're at.
Travis Kelce also had some thoughts on Kadarius Toney as well today.
Want them to know it's always love in this building. And I know guys go through things both in this building and in their personal lives. But I think what's real is what happens in this building and how we can channel that. And I just wanted to make sure he knew that we were all still behind him and ready to go get the Super Bowl, man.
Special teams coordinator Dave Tobe even said Toney could potentially be in the mix for punt returns in the Super Bowl.
There's a possibility. It's up to coach. See how the week goes this week. It'll be that 6th guy, whoever's going to be up at that wide receiver spot. He's definitely in the mix, though.
And right now, your guess is as good as mine if Kadarius Toney plays. He hasn't played in 6 weeks as it is, so part of me would not be surprised if Toney is a healthy, inactive, a scratch, not suiting up, especially when taking into consideration his recent Instagram rant. But another part of me wonders if KC will show some grace and find his athletic ability too tempting and get him out there on the field, even if it's just in a very limited capacity. Either way, we're going to find out in roughly a week. Let me know your thoughts on that, though, in the comments down below. Should Tony give it a go or hell nah? And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?